Back in my late teens and early 20s, one of the major issues that formed my political perspective was marriage equality. It's not like I was trying to get married anytime soon, nor have I in the interim, but I always thought it was unfair that gay friends of mine would be treated differently before the law, even though we were both doing the same thing, choosing a partner with whom to build our lives. Why would their lifestyle affect me, and why would mine affect them? And if they wouldn't, why should the government legitimize some of these arrangements but not others with different legal statuses? And I don't care about this issue because I'm concerned with who marries whom. In fact, it's the opposite. I don't care who marries whom. My concern was and is more fundamental than that. I believe you should be free to live the life you choose, so long as you aren't imposing upon or harming mine. That is a fundamental principle on which I've based my political perspective and on which I continue to build. I leave you alone, you leave me alone, and we each enjoy the private lives that we craft for ourselves. And that was a point on which I thought the left and progressives agreed, at least back when I considered myself one of them. But somehow that principle got left behind in all the progress. Somehow the freedom to live the life you choose has morphed into having the correct life imposed upon you if you dare to defy the progressive orthodoxy. The truth is, for much of the left, your freedom to choose the life that you want extends only as far as your choice is the correct one. A reality I previously thought would never come to be. Back when marriage equality was still being debated as a public policy issue, I remember people warning me that churches and venues and services would be forced to accommodate gay weddings if we established legal gay marriage, claims at the time I dismissed as ridiculous. Surely this was just a question of how the government recognizes gay couples, not a question of how private individuals or businesses do. Don't like gay marriage? Don't get one. That's what the bumper stickers at the time often read, and I believed them and agreed. Yet here we are, tumbling toward the bottom of a slope I was told was neither steep nor slippery, and we have legal penalties for refusing to take photographs or refusing to arrange and deliver flowers. We have people being sued all the way to the Supreme Court for refusing to bake a cake. Which makes me wonder, if you have to drag a guy all the way to the highest court in the land to get him to bake you a cake, do you really want the cake at all? It's not baked with love, but I get it. It's about the principle. Apparently the principle that you should have control over the lives of others, opposition to which I thought was the entire basis for this issue in the first place. If you're confused, that's because they make it confusing, adding so many conditions to the simple question of whether you should be free to live your life until the standard is actually other people being forced to accommodate your life. And a current story confuses it further with additional unrelated nonsense. If you think it's inappropriate for the state to coerce or to force someone to participate in something with which they religiously or morally or otherwise object, what happens when the state punishes that person in an entirely unrelated aspect of his life for having the wrong opinion and for running his home and his own private business the wrong way? For the answer, we visit an apple orchard in Charlotte, Michigan, Country Mill Farms, owned and operated by the Tennis family, Steve and Diana and their children, devout Catholics, and you guessed it, occasional wedding hosts. Controversy began in 2014 when Steve and Diana were contacted by a lesbian couple requesting to host their wedding at the farm. Steve declined, citing his religious convictions, but referred the couple to another area orchard. Sometime later in 2016, one of the women took to Facebook to discourage people from supporting Country Mill because the farm had refused to host her wedding, creating some social media heat, prompting Steve to clarify his religious beliefs in a Facebook post of his own. Steve said that based on his Catholic faith, he believes that marriage is a sacramental union between one man and one woman. Now, maybe you agree with Steve, or maybe you agree with the lady protesting on Facebook. Either way, this is exactly how the system ought to function. A guy provides a good or service to the market, and the market decides if it would like to consume that good or service. That's not where the real controversy and the real problem arise. The problem arises roughly 30 miles away in East Lansing, which hosts hosts an annual farmers market where Steve and Country Mill Farms have sold produce each year since 2010. After seeing the social media controversy, city officials in East Lansing contacted Steve and Country Mill Farms and asked them not to attend the farmers market for that particular Sunday in 2016. Due to pressure from the city, Steve and Country Mill Farms opted instead to stop booking weddings altogether for the 2016 farmers market season and continued to attend each and every Sunday. After the farmers market season ended in December 2016, Steve announced that Country Mill was back open for weddings, but only to ceremonies with one man and one woman. At the same time, the city of East Lansing amended its vendor guidelines for the farmers market, stating vendors will embody the spirit of the market by complying with city ordinances against discrimination, specifically a broad ordinance that prohibits the city from discriminating against any person in the exercise of his or her civil rights on the basis of religion, race, gender, or any number of factors. But apparently, it's the city's position that this ordinance does not protect the rights of a Catholic man who simply wishes not to participate in gay marriage. For this reason, citing this law, the city of East Lansing denied Country Mill's application for the 2017 farmers market, stating their business practices are considered a violation of the city's civil rights ordinances, even though these business practices take place 30 miles away and are in no way related to selling produce at the farmers market within city limits. Doesn't matter. If you don't conduct your business correctly elsewhere, you aren't welcome in East Lansing, says the city manager.
It's a very strong principle that you should not be discriminating against somebody elsewhere and then come here and want to participate in our market.
And Steve Tennis says how he conducts his own business at his own home, on his own farm, is none of East Lansing's concern.
Our faith and beliefs on marriage and hosting weddings at our home and at our backyard of our farm have nothing to do with the city of East Lansing, nor does it have anything to do with the produce that we sell to the people that attend the farmers markets, who are from all backgrounds and all beliefs.
Now perhaps you wonder, Matt, why are you sympathetic with the farmer's right to refuse business, but not with the city's right to refuse business? The farmer's market is a public accommodation bound by the Constitution of the United States not to discriminate on the basis of viewpoint. Steve's farm is under no such obligation, and that is the distinction that brings us to the good news in this case, despite my earlier pessimism about the general trajectory of this issue. Earlier in the year, Steve and Country Mill Farms filed a federal lawsuit against the city of East Lansing, alleging a breach of Steve's First Amendment rights as well as violations of certain state laws. And on September 15th, the court agreed, at least on a preliminary basis. Judge Paul Maloney wrote that based on Steve's substantial likelihood of success, the court will order East Lansing to allow his participation in the 2017 farmers market while the case proceeds. Steve and his family were there this past weekend selling produce to a mix of supporters and protesters in an arrangement we should all celebrate. One where they are free to sell and you are free to decide to buy or not without the state telling anyone what they must do based on who has the correct opinions. If I was near East Lansing, I would buy a bushel of apples from Steve and his family, not because I agree with everything he says. In fact, on the issues of religion and marriage equality, I bet we're miles apart. I want to support his business because he's standing up for something much more important: fundamental freedom. The freedom to be and to say and to do whatever you like without having someone else's vision of how to live imposed upon you. I don't care if you say black when I say white, or up when down, or hot when cold. I care that you and I respect each other's freedom and autonomy to make those picks for ourselves, and the state doesn't intervene to force us into any particular arrangement. Ironically, the reason I support Steve and his family is the same reason I supported marriage equality in the first place, and continue to. Your life is yours to live, so long as you aren't harming mine. Marry who you want to marry, manage your apple orchard as you see fit. Freedom. What a novel concept. I thought it was the principle on which this issue was won, and I hope it's the principle on which it continues. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to come hang out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Okay.